So this is going to be more of a serious video, but one that I think has a lot of merit. I've given it some real thought, and though I can't do this alone, I think this is a great video for our policymakers here in the state of Arizona specifically on how to fix our state and, more importantly, make it a powerhouse of a state. So this idea came to me after going to the Middle East. I got to visit Kuwait and Jordan and really spent some time there and looking at what the government there has created. Now, I, for one, am not a huge fan of large government, but this kind of has me on the edge of things, where, you know what, government, when it's for the people, can be a pretty good thing. So, the biggest thing that the Middle East has, or a lot of the richer Middle Eastern countries have, are oil, a finite resource that has lots of value today and age. Now, the beautiful thing about that oil is that these countries have gone ahead and made various investments into future technology using their current oil money. And for that reason, they can do things like sovereign wealth funds and really help empower their country economically in such a way that poverty isn't really an issue anymore. You have a very strong middle class and you have wealthy people, but you don't see a very prolific lower tier of people financially. And I got to thinking, how could we do this in Arizona? And I implore our officials to really take heed into this, because for every no or reason you come up with why this can't work, there are 10 reasons why. And it's simply a matter of getting it done. So step 1 would be this. Start by taking control, 51%, of local or municipal energy production, meaning companies like SRP, TEP, and some of the smaller factions that we have in our smaller cities up in the White Mountains. Take 51% financial stake in these enterprises. This is a similar tactic that's been used in the Middle East with oil production. So now you have some kind of government control over our electricity, our resources. From there, go ahead and invest heavily in solar energy. Now, solar energy seems and has been sold to us as a very expensive technology, and it really isn't. It's just been sold to us that way because there's a lot of money to be made in solar in the residential space. Commercially, the scales start to come down, and it is a very, very viable technology. And as we've all been told numerous times by experts in the field and entrepreneur billionaires, it doesn't take that much space on roofs or in various different places. You can even put them as shades, but real space in one state, so to speak, to power the entire country. So our next investment is creating a surplus of energy that doesn't need to come from non-renewable sources. Because if you have enough sunlight gathered in one localized place, Arizona, and we have means of storing that energy, which comes in different forms, you can then create a surplus of which you can sell to other states. You've now become the energy generation capital of the United States. You can then start providing electricity for states that don't have that kind of luxury at certain times of the year, especially places like California. They have rolling blackouts because their infrastructure simply can't handle the demand that their people need. Once you've created power, storage, and a product to sell, you now have a wealthy state, a state that generates income that can now create a sovereign wealth fund like these other places do in the Middle East. What can a sovereign wealth fund do? It can invest in resources for its people. It can invest in future income generating projects. But most importantly, you now have a state which behaves like a country in some ways, a state that is a powerhouse that can make sure its constituents have financial support. So when you start looking at things like electricity, if you can simply offer electricity to your constituents at little to no cost because you generate so much of it, you now have people that have more money to spend in the economy. And it doesn't hurt the state or economy because you have renewable resources creating that electricity. it really becomes a trickle-down effect. That money then gets reinvested into the economy and businesses thrive, small businesses especially. But then that leads to another question. You're going to have now a powerhouse that is being built on the idea of energy, and so you want to build business there, which you're going to bring more people and influxes of people to our state. And we have our weaknesses. We have water as a weakness. But now we have the money, the know-how, and the resources to find that water. And that's where we get to strike a deal with Mexico. We already have what's called the Port of Tucson in Rocky Point. By having that port, which is a joint venture between Mexican states and Arizona, we now have a place we can do a pipeline down to Mexico for desalination, of which you can subsidize and run on completely renewable energy, which is the major issue with desalination. So now you have water, energy, money, and a community of people that really are happy to be there because it's not as expensive to live there. And a sovereign wealth fund that can help to generate more income for that state. And you have states around you that are now benefiting from your increases. Now, that being said, all of this is a very viable idea, and I hope that our lawmakers can take this idea into something, make something of it happen. But you've built an island, effectively. An island surrounded by states that are benefiting of it. We can become our own version of Texas, but on a much broader scale. Arizona has one of the most powerful electrical grids as it is, which would be continuously upgraded with the new resources we have. Now, one of the big reasons why people would say, no, this can't be done, is simply because it will cost money up front, which means that we will have to take a burden up front. That's where, again, policymakers are going to have to step in and start to reduce corruption, reduce waste, remove programs that don't help whatsoever, or don't help enough for a net positive on the money spent, and refocus that money into our grid system and creating a viable product and creating an economy in Arizona. The resources we create now aren't quite enough to make us a real big player, but we can. Arizona absolutely can. And it's up to you, our lawmakers, and us as a people to ask for this to happen, for us to do this. We could legitimately be as powerful as a country as Kuwait, which, might I remind you, Kuwait is tiny. You could fit many Kuwaits in the state of Arizona. And they have the financial resources because they have the energy generation to do it. The future is in energy. And I truly believe that with proper leadership, this can be done. And so I hope this goes to the right ears and we start pushing in this direction. By getting ourselves as an energy powerhouse, we can fix Arizona. We can eliminate homelessness. We can eliminate poverty. And we can make ourselves a very valuable state to our country, and making us as a country even stronger. And I think that's the American way. Give me your thoughts below, but this is truly my game plan for what I think would really help us as Arizonans succeed. Thanks for listening, guys.